this video, I'm going to be breaking down some no BS Turo advice that I really think could make a big difference in your Turo fleet. This is not only stuff that I personally do, but it's also things that I've seen other people implement and find a lot of success with as well. But before we dive into that, I do want to remind you guys about my course, the Car Sharing Masterclass, and you can get $100 off by using the code OFFER100. The link is down in the description below. The Car Sharing Masterclass is an incredibly robust course. It takes you through everything that you need to know about starting and scaling your own car sharing fleet. We go over co-hosting, Turo car sharing, direct rentals, and more. The course is currently over 7 hours of content, but whenever we release our 3.0 version in August of this year, it's going to be exceeding 10 hours of content, and as a course member, you will automatically be upgraded to the 3.0 whenever it's released. Not only that, we also have a ton of documents and resources, a private community, and monthly Zoom calls as well. Again, you can use the code OFFER100 to get $100 off. The link is down in the description below. If you're struggling to get bookings, I would be willing to bet that 9 times out of 10, there is one of 3 reasons as to why this is the case. And truthfully, probably 8 times out of 10, it really comes down to one specific issue. First is photos. This is a less common culprit, but if you aren't getting Turo bookings and your photos suck, this could be why. You should be putting effort into your Turo listing photos, and I'm not saying that you have to do something overly fancy. You don't need to go get a digital camera or hire an editor, but just going to the right location, getting the right poses and angles of your car, and choosing the right time of day can make a huge difference. Don't do it in your driveway or a random parking lot or right at the time of day where the sun is the harshest and your lighting sucks. When I take photos, I wake up first thing, go to a high-end shopping center at around 7 or 8 a.m., and I take my photos there. Lighting is great, it's a really cool-looking shopping center, and the best part is, because I'm there so early, I basically have the entire place to myself. Secondly is your availability, and this is a much more common issue as to why maybe you aren't getting the bookings that you expect. Now, I personally am a big believer in the 24/7 model. My cars are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We have 1-day advance notice, 3-hour trip buffer time, and any trip minimum, which means that theoretically somebody could book our cars for, say, a couple of hours or 1 day. And while I recognize that this method isn't necessarily for everyone, and I'm not saying that you have to have this exact method with your Turo fleet, what I am saying is that if you are someone who has a 12-hour advance notice, 3-day trip minimum, 5-hour trip buffer time, you are not going to see as many bookings as somebody who has much more open availability. But truthfully, there is nothing that plays as big of a role in your Turo bookings as price. In the majority of cases, your price is ultimately going to dictate how well your car does on Turo. And this is especially true at the beginning whenever you're first getting the ball rolling. Now, once your car has some good trips under its belt, some 5-star reviews, you can raise your prices and still get great bookings, even if there are other cars in your area that are technically priced lower. But in order to get to that point, you first have to have your pricing maybe a bit lower than you'd like. Let me give you an example. This is a Lincoln MKC that I have in my fleet. When I first listed this car on Turo, it was a struggle to get it booked out. This is a fairly pricey luxury car, and Turo kept pricing it at the same price as my older, less nice Hyundai Tucson, which was in some cases $40 per day. I resisted this as I refused to price the Hyundai Tucson and the Lincoln MKC at the same price point, and as a result, I didn't get a lot of bookings. And I look at this in hindsight, and I just wonder why I resisted this for as long as I did, because the bottom line is I know how this works. I've gone through this dozens and dozens of times. So after I noticed this car wasn't getting bookings, I finally decided to lean into it and drop my prices. I needed to get some bookings under the car's belt, get some 5-star reviews, and stroke the Turo algorithm a bit. So I dropped the MKC to $40, sometimes $37 per day for about a month. This was way back earlier this year, and today this car is constantly getting rented, and it's not rented at $37 per day, but at $70 to $80 per day, which is where it should have been all along. By dropping my prices, I was able to get some traction with the Turo algorithm, get some bookings and reviews with the vehicle, and as a result, it is performing as it should be, and it is constantly getting rented out at a high price point. This is all to say that if you aren't getting the Turo bookings that you would like, chances are price is your issue, and you should be paying pretty constant attention to your pricing. Whenever you first list a vehicle on Turo, you should be undercutting your competition to get some trips under the belt of that vehicle, and then on an ongoing basis, you should be checking in with your pricing truthfully on a daily basis. That's what I do with my fleet, and I do occasionally find that cars are either priced too low or too high and they do need to be adjusted. Managing your pricing is an active endeavor, and if you are someone who isn't seeing the bookings that you would like, I highly encourage you to pay closer attention to your pricing. and in many cases, lower your pricing. Next is remote key exchanges. Either do them or you probably shouldn't be doing Turo. Now, this is probably not as hot of a take as it used to be because back in the day, remote key exchanges were actually fairly rare, at least for a host to do them 100% of the time, but nowadays it has become a lot more common. Now, with Turo, you have two means to get your keys to your guest: in-person key exchanges and remote key exchanges. In-person key exchanges is whenever you actually meet the guest in person at the time in which they're picking up the car. You meet them, you talk with them, you verify your license, and you give them the key. Remote is when you have a lockbox or some sort of locking system at the car. The guest sends their ID and verifies it via the app before the reservation, and you give them the code at the time of the reservation. We give our lockbox code about 45 minutes before the reservation starts, but according to the Turo terms of service, you can technically give them access to the car an hour before the reservation, but no earlier than that. Now, I've said this before, but if I didn't do remote key exchanges, I truly don't think that I would be a Turo host. And I firmly believe, in fact, I will die on the hill, that remote key exchanges are the only way to effectively do Turo. Now, my team and I have our business operations down to a T. Most of our returns happen in the morning, so we clean cars in the morning, and while some cars do get returned in the afternoons are much slower, which means that once our morning check-ins are done, my entire team and I can work on other things. Maintenance and repairs on cars, admin work, filming content, or even working on completely different businesses. And this has given us the freedom to turn Turo and car sharing into a semi-passive business. While if we did in-person key exchanges, it would be very difficult, if not impossible, to do anything but Turo because our entire day would be revolved around when people are returning and picking up cars. And the reality is that people are late, they're early, they no-show, they ghost you, they extend last minute. There are a dozen different reasons as to why you would be wasting a ton of time by doing your key exchanges in person. Being able to check in and clean our cars on our time, and then being able to place a lockbox at the vehicle and then go on with our day, and then allowing for the guest to then pick up the car on their own time, it is a fundamental part of our business. It's a win-win for both the guest and ourselves, and it's something that I think is crucial if you're someone who's wanting to scale with Turo while still enjoying the business model. Listing one car on Turo just probably isn't worth it. This is probably a bit of a controversial take. I feel very confident in saying that I think that if you are someone who's looking to only have one single car on Turo, there are probably better side hustles out there that can make you the same amount of money. And I would go as far as to saying that I think that this is a true statement. Even if you're that person who wants to buy your dream car, list that car out on Turo and use it as a way to justify the payment. Turo is an extremely lucrative side hustle. In fact, I would argue, and I'll die on the hill, that I think it's one of the best side hustles in existence. However, Turo is an actual business, and there are a lot of things that you have to keep up with if you want to do this successfully. Repairs, maintenance, guest communication, check-in and check-outs, damage claims. There are a number of things that you have to keep track of, and while keeping track of these things with just one car, it's not something that's overly overwhelming. I think that there is an argument to be made that it just isn't really worth it. I found that people that just have one car on Turo aren't really making enough to keep them really jazzed about Turo to the point where they'll inconvenience themselves and their day-to-day life to keep their Turo fleet going. And as a result, single-car Turo hosts oftentimes put their Turo business on the back burner whenever it becomes inconvenient. They may list one car but then block it off at random dates and times if they're not able to check the car in. They never get enough Turo bookings to really feel as though they're learning the ins and outs of the business model and truly becoming a pro at the platform. And while you absolutely can make good money with one car, it's not enough to really be life-changing, and as a result, the return on your investment and on your time can feel a bit underwhelming. In my experience, not only with myself, but with course members and people I've spoken to, the real difference maker is about 3 cars. If you're serious about Turo, I'd recommend trying to get 3 cars as fast as possible because that's when you can really get into a groove, you can get enough bookings to really learn the platform inside and out, and you can make enough money to really feel like the business is propelling you forward. And as I mentioned a moment ago, I think the same can be said for somebody who is using Turo as a way to justify their dream car purchase. Turo is oftentimes marketed and can be an attractive option for people who maybe want an expensive car and they want to use Turo as a way to be able to afford that. And while I do think that the numbers of this situation can absolutely work, you can definitely use Turo as a way to pay off your dream car and kind of justify that from a financial standpoint. I think the downside here is that you're setting yourself up for emotional failure. Turo guests in general, whether you're renting nice cars or lower end cars like I do, they are a bit negligent. Sure, not all guests are going to trash your car, but even guests with nice vehicles will curb rash the wheels, drive the car aggressively, door ding the car. There's truly just a lot that can happen. And I know for me personally, if I was to list my dream car on Turo, I would be really upset if a guest damaged it. This is where, again, I think the three-car approach is a much more attractive and lucrative option. If I was somebody who was wanting to use Turo as a way to afford my dream car, I wouldn't actually buy the dream car and list that car in Turo. I would instead save up money, buy 3 cash cars, and then use those cash cars to finance my dream car. Me and my husband have done something similar in the past, and we will do something similar in the future as well. When we got my husband's GT500 a couple of years ago, we didn't ever put that car in Turo, nor will we ever. Instead, we allowed for our fleet to pay for the GT500. And whenever I get a new 6th Gen 4Runner later this year, we aren't going to put that on Turo either, and instead we'll allow our cheaper cars to pay off that new note. If I was somebody who was wanting to finance my dream car and use Turo as a way to justify it, I would use cheaper cars to pay for the dream car, and I would keep the dream car for myself. There will be less wear and tear, it will be less expensive, you won't have the abuse, and you'll be able to preserve some of the depreciation, which is a huge risk factor whenever you're putting newer cars on the Turo platform. And the last bit of no BS advice that I have is that, love it or hate it, Turo is in the hospitality industry, and this is a customer service-based business. You must be good at customer service and be willing to embrace this side of the business if you want to be successful at Turo, and this has become more important as Turo metrics have changed. This means following up quickly with guest concerns and questions, and answering their phone calls whenever they call you, even if it's at an inconvenient time. Being able to address angry and upset guests. And unfortunately, for better or for worse, it means that you're kind of on call all the time, even on nights and weekends. Customer service is an absolute crucial part of Turo, and in my opinion, I think that there are a lot of Turo hosts that just don't really understand this. But on the flip side of that coin, the best hosts that I've met and the ones that I've been so impressed with are truthfully the ones that have customer service down to a T. Without customer service, you're not going to have a successful Turo business. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below. And while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell. And I will see you guys in the next video.